The American dominance in this era is kind of weird. Only because we look back at the original six era and it's remembered as the glory days of both the Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, and it will be, but we're not there yet. The Bruins lead the league again, 27, 8 and 13, followed by the Leafs, who are 28, 14 and 6. Detroit's 21, 16 and 11. New York, as in the Rangers, 21, 19 and 8. We haven't got rid of the Americans yet. The Chicago Blackhawks 16, 25 and 7, and then the Montreal Canadiens, incremental improvement, 16, 26 and 6. The Americans, no incremental, nothing. 8, 29 and 11. The Canadiens started getting better because they started getting smarter. They hired Dick Irvin Sr. to be their coach. They saw what he did in Toronto and said, we want him to do that here in Montreal. It is the fourth straight year that Boston's first in the league. And no, they didn't win 4 straight Stanley Cups. So the jinx of the President's Trophy existed before the President's Trophy. It's that good. They also instituted a $25 fine for leaving the bench to join a fight, because bench clearing brawls were becoming a thing. So before 1941, not a thing, 1941, they became a thing. It's kind of weird how that works. It's just one team gets the idea, and then there you go. February 23rd of 1941, Boston Bruins set a record with a 23-game unbeaten streak, 15 wins and 8 ties. Toronto wins their first 7 road games that year, which is also a record. First and second team All-Stars. First team at center, Bill Cowley. Second team, Sillaps Sr., Cowley of Boston, Sillaps of Toronto. Right wing, Brian Hextall of the New York Rangers is first. Bobby Bauer of the Boston Bruins is second. It sounds so weird to me, Bobby Bauer of the Boston Bruins. I need to find a bunch of guys that the alliteration works that way. Sweeney Schreiner of the Toronto Maple Leafs and left wing. He's first team, and Woody Dumart of the Boston Bruins is second. On defense, Dick Clapper of Boston, Wally Stanowski of Toronto are first team. Second team is Earl Siebert of Chicago, and Ott Heller, one of the great names in hockey, Ott Heller, New York Rangers, second team. In goal, Turk Broda of Toronto. So yeah, we're up to that era where Turk Broda is going to be a hero, and Toronto fans are like, yes, finally some reason this series is going to be good. Frank Brimsick of Boston is the second team All-Star. Coach, Cooney Wheeland from Boston, first team coach. Second team coach, Dick Irvin of the Montreal Canadiens. Awards. Okay, they're not on the board, so I'll have to read them to you. So just follow along in your books. You don't have the book at home? Okay, all right. Hart winner for MVP, of course, Bill Cowley of the Boston Bruins. The Calder winner, Johnny Quilty of the Montreal Canadiens. Vezina winner goes to Turk Broda of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And gentlemanly conduct, the Lady Bing, goes to Bobby Bauer of the Boston Bruins. That's how I remembered. I was like, right, Bobby Bauer of the Boston Bruins. Bollocks, I forgot him. Yeah, there's a lot of alliteration there, and there needs to be more of that. Dear Boston, please get guys with first and last names starting with B. Thank you, signed, everybody. It's still a matter of the playoffs being the same. So the first two teams, the top two teams, play in the first round of the playoffs, which means that Boston plays Toronto in the first round. It's really unfair if Boston and Toronto are two of the better teams, and they play in the first round. Okay. Boston wins game 1, 3-0 at home. Toronto then wins game 2, 5-3. Toronto wins game 3, 7-2. Boston wins game 4, 2-1. So 2-2 series. Toronto wins game 5 in Boston, 2-1, overtime, and they're going home, but they lose at home 2-1 in game 6, and then Boston wins game 7, 2-1. A lot of low-scoring games in that one, but Boston wins the series in 7. Quarterfinals. Detroit beats the Rangers 2-1 in overtime. The Rangers then beat Detroit 3-1, and Detroit wins game 3, 3-2, meaning they win the best of 3 series, 2-1. And in the other quarterfinal, Montreal, with better coaching and seemingly getting better, Chicago wins game 1, 2-1. Montreal wins game 2 at home, 4-3 in double overtime, and then Chicago wins game 3, 3-2. So Chicago wins the series 2-1. In the semifinals, it's a sweep for Detroit. Detroit wins 3-1 in Game 1, and then Detroit wins Game 2 2-1 in overtime. In the finals, Boston and Detroit. Boston wins Game 1 at home 3-2. They win Game 2 2-1. Boston then wins both games in Detroit by scores of 4-2 and 3-1 to win the first ever sweep of the Stanley Cup Final. So the Boston Bruins are Stanley Cup champions for the second time in 3 years. And I really hope they enjoyed it, because their number of Stanley Cup victories really isn't that much more than the New York Rangers. It's funny how hexes, jinxes, and curses and all this stuff works, because what ends up happening, of course, is that Montreal, Toronto, and Detroit will dominate this series, while Boston, New York, and Chicago are fighting it out. There are the odd seasons where that changes, but for the most part, Toronto, Montreal, Detroit are your most successful franchises. You can see that 1 year after winning the Stanley Cup, the Rangers drop all the way down to 4th in the league. They are unable to get out of the first round. The undoing of the New York Rangers had started already. But there you go. There's your history lesson for today. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.